I have to get this off my mind, right? So, uh, I've had this series in my brain called Skipping Steps because what I see is I see a lot of people complain about, generationally, people don't really appreciate things today as they did in the past. And so, what what I'm looking at is the issue is really connected to skipping steps. There's a series of things where we skip steps, and so I want to give the background first of what I see skipping steps is. Uh, Life, I think, has a way of advancing for people. So there's things that your generation does or did that future generations will not do, and past generations did more to get to. And because that exists, I look at it in a sense of thinking about how close or far does it take us to what we seek as progressing society. One example that I have that first came to my mind is studying in college and in high school, I guess, and learning, about Latin and how the Romans used the Latin language and how the Latin language was used as the language for the Roman Empire, and then it got disseminated throughout the world at the time, which was most of Eastern and Western Europe, and then into like Northern Africa and maybe a little bit to Asia as they went the other way. But as that time passed and the Roman Empire fell, what you saw was the connection to Latin dissipate, and the local, I don't know if tribal is the right, but uh, the local ethnic language or the new community language became the language of the location, the region, etc. And then they connected ethnic backgrounds from generations of people connecting to that, to the point where today I believe it's essentially seen as Latin is a dead language, right? But while it's seen as a dead language, it's also recognized as a base for many languages that are spread throughout the world. And you go with Latin based Romantic languages, so you have Italian, you have Spanish, you have French, and you have Portuguese. English is Germanic, I believe, or it's like Germanic mixed with a bunch of different stuff. But if we look at the world, what we see is the Romance or Roman languages are spread around the world because those languages were connected to empires that colonized other places, right? And so you think about that, you can see the similarities in languages where I studied French in school, and I recognize there's similar words in French and in Spanish, and they're just pronounced differently because of the way you pronounce or you speak the language. In Portuguese and Spanish is similar. Again, pronunciation and things like that. So the thing that I find to be most intriguing is as generationally we move past the foundational language, which was Latin or foundational whatever, some people have a curiosity about the origination, but most, they skip it. They find other ways to connect, and they miss the foundation. And so what happens is languages die, things from the past die, and then what essentially happens is that at some point we get so far removed from the thing that started it that we end up having to go back, but we skip steps to get there. And so today, because of just what I've seen in the world today, I think my focus is on an ad that I saw for a gentleman that is running for political office. Now, it's interesting that this gentleman is running to be president, and it is the year 2026. And the last presidential election was in 2024. So I guess it's time to start running for president 2 years and several months, because it's March, before the actual election day. Now, the reason why this matters is because this gentleman is he's a third party candidate, and it is my hope as time progresses that third party in American or USA politics disappears as a thing, and that there's multiple parties, because the two-party system is one that is largely unproductive for the progress of the society, but very productive for those that are already in power and are part of the establishment of the two parties or both parties. So here's my issue with third party candidates. I'm saying nothing new to anyone, but it's focused on my skipping steps part and why I believe they've been unsuccessful, which again I think people have probably addressed as well. First, in the United States, third party candidates historically, especially for president, have been largely unsuccessful. What essentially happens, and I see it mean successful in terms of capacity to win, because one, the president is elected by the Electoral College instead of popular vote. So this is why, again, my skipping steps part is just driving me, because of, I think they're all scams. I'm just going to be honest. So third party candidates, once they lose, whatever side they're closest to the winning party, or the party that needs their platform the most, adopts it into their platform as a promise. And then they do that to get the voters who supported this third party candidate. There's absolutely nothing with supporting the philosophy of a third party candidate and logic and ideology. But at the ballot box, unless there's a clear winner, specifically in states, then as a third party voter, you have to really look at the holistic picture and see how you really affect change. And you do affect change. So it's very important to understand that they are looking at you. They look at you like the independent voter or the third party voter, but it's a big deal. So here's the thing, right? My question is, why are third party candidates always running for president? There's nothing wrong with that, but here's the thing about being president. In the United States, which is a republic, and a federation of states, 50 states, and to be exact, at the time, maybe there'll be more, maybe there'll be something, whatever. Anyways, so to be the president of the United States, it's important to understand that the president makes no laws. Executive orders are not laws. They get thrown away. So even though what we're seeing with executive orders exist, that's because Congress is failing at their job. Let's do work. But so the president makes no laws. They enforce laws and they execute the laws, right? So here's the thing, right? As a third party candidate, because you have a platform or whatever, the thing that happens is because you have no direct allegiance politically in an affiliation with one or the other party, and because your party has no people in Congress with power, the Congress realistically has no reason to listen to anything you say. So to elect a person who's a part of a third party who has no representation in the body that makes the laws, the House or the Senate, is really an ego trip. Because even if you go from there and say, okay, so they don't have any real support or forced allegiances or established allegiances politically by party in the House or the Senate, they also have no allegiances in any of the states. So to be a third party candidate running for president with zero political affiliation or traction in seated positions that make laws it feels like a scam, man. So I have to ask, why always the presidency? And then I think what they're doing, and the reason why I'm saying the word scam, is because if we look at people or politics outside of the United States, and there's third party candidates, even though most countries use parliamentary systems, but some of them have presidents, but the presidents have different powers, right? They're not, sometimes the president has power like a prime minister. It depends on the country, right? But countries that have political party, more than two major political parties, generally tend to be more representative of the people. But here's the thing, then the great trick is that those places allow for people to choose what their philosophies are, and they're not forced into one or the other. So that means that those individuals locally can run on those platforms that benefit and affect the people they represent in their platforms locally. So then they can get elected to the major body or a Congress or a parliament to then actually have voting rights and abilities to then make laws, to then build coalitions. You see, they're skipping step, because in the United States, third parties largely make the position or take the position that they're going to run for president instead of running for mayor and alderperson and state representative and state congressperson and state senator and governor and lieutenant governor. They're skipping all of the states and steps to build coalitions on a local level where actual power exists. And they're going straight for the presidency, which is scamming, because they know they can't win anything, because if they won, they have no power, because the president that's democratically elected of a republic like the United States as it currently exists has no legislative powers. What are you doing? Like, what are we talking about? It's a scam. So the biggest question is why avoid the time to build grassroots affiliation and power? It's because I firmly believe they're just out there to make money and to cause trouble. That's it, man. That's really it. Like, if you really, really, really had a desire to affect change, you would run for local offices, because that's where the power is. Or is because they think that the president is a dictator king. And I swear that they were like, oh, we don't want those things. So anyways, that annoys me. And what it does is, when they do these things, it actually is quite counterproductive in my perspective, because what it does is it continues to foster this idea that the elected president, who's term limited and power limited to a degree, is a king. So for the 8 years or the 4 years that person's president, they're the king. They are not. They are not the king. They don't know. So please stop. So I need to know why we keep pushing this politically ignorant activity. I mean, I kind of stated the scam part and that they want to disrupt the thing, but what's more disruptive than actually getting elected and getting an actual place in a legislative body to make real laws? To what's more disruptive than that, than making noise every 2 or 4 years? That's literally, they're stealing money from people. That they're skipping steps. They're skipping steps because why do we care to send any attention to third party candidates who have no foundational elected real lawmaking power in any state? So if I was a third party candidate and I really, really, really wanted to do this, I would say, hey, man, let's start in the places where I think we can win, that believe in what we believe. And I'm getting elected to all the little local offices. I don't need all of them. I just need to get elected, and I need those people to establish power, grow up their power, and then get elected to a higher office and then to a higher office. And then we start doing it in different places. So then we start building coalitions. We don't need to have the majority everywhere. But what we do need to have is actual people who can make actual laws that are actually in effect. Because then when people call you to the carpet and say, what have you done? And you have nothing, then you're like, oh, well, but we're going to make change. No, you're not. No, you are not. You're scamming people for their money. So when I see people say when I'm president or when I'm running for president and they're part of a third party, I feel like they're a scammer because they're skipping steps. Why do you want to run for president? Because the president, no, the president cannot. Stop it. Stop it. Just because we got this, whatever's going on right now. No, you cannot. Can you run for mayor of a big city? Can you run for U.S. Congress? Get some votes in Congress, right? The U.S. Senate. Like, get an elected seat that has the greater opportunity to get elected and then actually have political power. Because, hey, incumbent privilege for seated elected officials in almost every elected place is, without a term limit, is like 93%. So all you got to do is get elected to a place. And then after you get elected to a real place, you're going to probably be there. So when you're there, you start recruiting people over to join your party and then grow your party's power. Skipping steps. Third party candidates who go to run to be president instead of running to be local officials who actually make laws and create an actual governmental lawmaking power base and foundation. I'm sad, man. I'm happy as a person, but they're scamming. And I really hope they stop scamming people and people become politically educated and more demanding.